I've been running freight across the Southeast for over 2 decades, Tennessee, Kentucky, the Carolinas, and I've seen the weird. Barefoot drifters in the dead of winter. Deer frozen in the lane like they're waiting to die. Even a man standing on a hill in Virginia with his arms out like a scarecrow. But nothing ever got under my skin like what happened near mile marker 109. It was just past 2 in the morning, westbound on Route 64 hauling steel coil. Behind schedule after a blown axle in Asheville. Fog rolled in out of nowhere. Not the soft kind, but thick, yellow-white, stuck to the windshield like oil and swallowed everything in front of me. It came on like a wall, sudden and heavy. And something in my gut said not to pull over. Not out here, not on this stretch. Road went quiet. No tire whine, no CB chatter, just silence. Then I saw the sign, glowing green through the haze. Rest stop, quarter mile. I pulled off slow, half expecting it to be chained up. But it was there, dim and empty. Cracked asphalt under buzzing lights. A busted vending machine next to the bathrooms. And just past the concrete divider near the tree line, a girl. Barefoot, soaked to the knees. Wearing a threadbare denim jacket with hair matted wet against her face like she'd crawled out of a creek. She looked at me like she knew who I was. Like I was the one she'd been waiting for. And without thinking, I leaned over and popped the passenger door. She climbed in without a word, folded her hands in her lap. I straight ahead and said real quiet, "Next exit." That was it. I don't pick up hitchhikers. Never have. But she didn't feel dangerous. She felt wrong, sure, but not in a way I could explain. More like she didn't quite belong here. As we rolled back onto the highway, she didn't speak, didn't move, just stared out into the fog while something inside me started to squeeze. Like a seatbelt cinched too tight across my ribs. I tried to clear the tension. Joked, "Hope you like old country." But she didn't flinch. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "You still think about her?" And I felt every nerve in my body freeze. No one knew about June. Not out here. Not in this truck. Not on this road. June had died 3 winters ago. Cancer. The slow kind. The kind that takes them piece by piece until they don't even remember your face. I hadn't spoken her name in months. But this girl, she knew. And then she said June hated fog. The way she said it, soft and near smiling, like she remembered it herself. My hands shook on the wheel. I looked at her again, really looked at her. And her face was young, but her eyes weren't. They were old. Too old, like they'd seen me before. That's when I noticed the mile marker. Again, 109. Same one I passed earlier. Same dent in the guardrail. Same faded spray paint. I told myself I was mistaken, that maybe I was disoriented. But 5 minutes later, there it was again, and again, and again. I hadn't turned. I hadn't changed lanes. GPS said I was still heading west. But I was stuck, looping. The girl just sat there, hands folded, humming. Low at first. Not a song, just a sound. But then it settled into something I recognized. It was June, the last voicemail she ever left me. That same tune, that same soft voice saying she'd wait for me to come home. And the worst part, this girl's mouth wasn't moving. She wasn't the one humming. I wanted to speak, but my throat was locked up like it didn't belong to me anymore. And the fog had swallowed the sky. The trees, the whole damn world. I was alone, except I wasn't. Then the CB came alive. Static. Then a voice. My voice. Breaker 1 to 9, stone face westbound, hauling empty through hell. The exact thing I'd said earlier that night. Same tone, same words, but I hadn't touched the mic. I turned the volume down and looked up, just in time to see it again. Same broken down Ford Taurus. Same cracked taillight, same spot on the shoulder. Like the road was copying itself over and over. The girl turned her head to me. Finally. And when her mouth opened, what came out wasn't a word. It was a knock. 3 slow knocks, like someone rapping on the underside of the sleeper cab. I looked back. Nothing behind the seats. Nothing in the bunk. No one else in that truck. Just me. And her. And then not even her. Because when I whipped my head forward again, mile marker 109 was back. I slammed the brakes. Tires screamed. Rig skidded to a stop across the shoulder. I jumped out into the gravel, breathing like it might help me wake up. But it didn't. Fog was still there. The girl was still in the cab, but something in her face had changed. Not the features, the feeling. The helplessness was gone. What was left was something ancient, patient, something that looked at me like I'd finally brought it home. I ran to the driver's side door, ready to yank her out, ask her what the hell she was doing to me. But the seat was empty, just my fleece jacket crumpled where she'd sat. Wet footprints on the floor mat. Engine running. Dash clock said 6:13 a.m. sun bleeding through the fog. GPS said mile marker 109. Same spot I'd picked her up, but I'd lost a quarter tank. The odometer showed 214 miles. Miles I hadn't driven. Not really. I just stood there, hands shaking, not knowing what the hell was real anymore. Later, at a truck stop diner, I pulled the dash cam footage. It showed me getting out at the rest stop, checking the rig, getting back in. Alone. No passenger. No door opening. No sound but my own breathing. And a low, staticky hum right. When she asked about June, I matched the audio file to June's last voicemail. Same pitch. Same timing. The waveform matched like a fingerprint. I haven't touched Route 64 since. Won't even deadhead near it. Something waits at mile marker 109. Not to kill you. No, that'd be mercy. It waits to get inside you, to find the cracks in your grief. And once it's in, it doesn't leave. It just hums, quiet and patient, while you lie in the dark of your sleeper cab and wait for the knock to come again. I've been driving long enough to trust my gut more than I trusted GPS. But that night, somewhere past Pine Mountain, heading east with 6 pallets of industrial cable in the trailer, I let the glowing screen override instinct. And I've regretted it every mile since. It started with a blinking digital detour sign at 1:47 a.m. Route 23 closed ahead. Landslide risk, follow alternate route. I knew that stretch well enough to know landslides weren't a joke out there. So I slowed up, signaled off. Took the marked detour just like it told me to. The new road was tight and winding, hugging the base of a ridge, where the trees pressed close and the pavement turned to patchy gravel. No guardrails, no streetlights, just sloped shoulders and a cold, wet fog slinking between the trunks like it knew something. I didn't. I flicked on the brights, turned the radio off. Didn't feel right playing anything out there. Not on a road that felt this forgotten. After a few winding miles, I passed what looked like a collapsed church, just a sagging skeleton of a building, half swallowed by brush, with a warped sign in front that read, "Mercy is coming," painted in black streaks that had run down the wood like tears. That was the first real wrong moment. Not just eerie off, like the place wasn't meant to be seen, like it had been left out of time and didn't want to be remembered. I kept going. 1 mile, maybe 2. And I turned a corner, and there it was again. Same church, same sign. Same busted steeple leaning like it was bowing towards something in the dirt. I told myself maybe it was a second church. Maybe I hadn't gone as far as I thought. but my GPS had frozen. Time, speed, all of it locked. I tapped the screen. Nothing. Reset. Still nothing. I pulled out the paper map from my glove box and looked for the road. But the section I was on wasn't labeled. Just blank. A crease between two routes. That's when the air in the cab started to feel heavier. Like altitude had changed, even though the engine wasn't straining. I checked my phone. No signal. No CB either. I keyed up just to make noise. Breaker 19. Red Dog westbound. Anybody reading me? But all that came back was static, then a hiss. Like someone breathing into the mic too close, and then silence again. Clock read 2:23 a.m. Fuel was down more than it should have been. I slowed when I saw a narrow bridge ahead. Rusted steel frame. Wooden boards, crossing a creek that glinted black under my lights. I should have stopped. Something in my bones said crossing that bridge meant something would change. But I rolled on. Tires thumped over the planks. The second I hit the other side, it was like the forest changed, darker, heavier, like even the leaves were watching. Another turn, another curve, and then it was there again, the church. Same exact angle. Same mercy is coming sign. Except this time, the bell was gone. Just a bare wooden gap in the frame. And then I heard it. 3 slow knocks. Not loud, not frantic, just steady. From the sleeper cab behind me. 1, 2, 3. I didn't stop. Didn't look. Just tightened my grip on the wheel and kept my eyes dead forward. Because something in me knew if I checked that bunk, if I even glanced in the mirror, I'd see something back there that didn't belong. Then I saw them, my own tire tracks, on the side of the road, already there, like I'd been here before, like I was chasing myself in circles down a road that didn't want to end. I wanted to hit the brakes, spin around, head back the way I came, but I couldn't, because something about the way the trees leaned in and the road curled like a ribbon around my neck told me there was no back, only forward. Even if forward meant deeper into nowhere. I kept going. No signs. No lights. Just asphalt that looked too familiar and trees that looked like a backdrop repeating over and over. When I couldn't take it anymore, I pulled the truck onto a gravel patch by a rotted fence post and climbed out with my flashlight. I told myself I'd walk just far enough to prove it wasn't looping. Maybe find a mailbox, a street name, anything. But the moment my boots hit the gravel, the air changed. It wasn't cold. It wasn't warm. It was just wrong. Still and thick, like the whole forest was holding its breath. As I moved, I started hearing my footsteps out of sync, like someone was following behind. Not quite matching my pace. Not copying. Delaying. I spun around. Light cutting through fog, and moss and twisted roots. Nothing, just the sound of my breath coming, faster than it should. I turned back. The truck was gone. My chest locked up. No taillights. No silhouette. No tire marks. Just empty road and trees closing in. I called out. Loud. Panicked. Red Dog, come back. But my voice sounded thinner, like the woods were sucking the life out of it. Then I heard it, low and distant, my own engine idling. Not ahead, not behind, off the road, to the left, deeper in the trees. I should have run the other way, but it was the only sound that felt real. So I pushed through the branches, tripping over roots, slipping in mud, until I hit a clearing, not wide, just a pocket where the trees stepped back. And in that clearing, my truck. Lights on. Cab door open. Sitting in front of that same church. Except now it was rebuilt. Fresh paint. Windows glowing. Bell tower whole again. And I knew it hadn't been there when I got out. I walked up slow, like I was approaching a sleeping animal. CB mic was hanging loose, swaying slightly like it had just been dropped. Then I heard my voice again, calm, casual, coming through the static. Red Dog, do you copy? You're almost there, buddy. Just a little further. Almost time. I backed up fast, slammed the door, but the voice didn't stop. It said, don't worry. You'll get used to it. We all do. Something moved behind the curtain in the sleeper bunk. Just a shift. A shadow. I didn't wait. Didn't climb in. I didn't even run. I just turned and walked. And the next thing I remember is sitting on the steps of that church at dawn. Hands bloody. Clothes soaked. Truck gone. Road gone. Just a stone foundation and a cold fire pit. When I finally stumbled out 3 miles to the highway, flagged down a local, he looked at me like I was already dead and said, "Ain't been a road back there since." '02, landslide wiped it clean off. I didn't argue, just nodded, because I know what I drove. I know what followed me off that bridge. And sometimes, late at night, parked at a lonely truck stop with the CB on out of habit, I still hear my own voice bleeding through the static, asking if anyone's seen Red Dog, saying I'm still on the road, still following my own damn tracks. I was running a double shift out of Missouri, hauling 15 tons of dry medical freight down to a depot in Dalton, Georgia, when the storm started hitting the ridge. Real cold front, sideways rain. Sleet pushing sideways like needles. Wind battering the cab so hard it felt like I was dragging a parachute. I just crossed into North Carolina on Route 129, somewhere past the Copperline exit, when I saw amber lights through the trees, clear as day, flashing in the dark. And I know for a fact there's no way station out there. Not for another 30 miles. But the signs looked real. Big green placards with reflective lettering. Directional arrows. Everything clean and official. Maybe it was a mobile DOT check. Temporary setup. Storm reroute. That happens sometimes. So I did what I was supposed to do. I took the exit. The road dipped fast, gravelly and slick, then leveled into a wide, half-paved clearing surrounded by pine so thick the fog couldn't even slip through. And right there, tucked under that canopy like it had always been, was a squat concrete building, dull gray, single story, one garage bay lit by a flickering strip light, and 2 men in crisp Department of Transportation, uniforms standing outside like they'd been expecting me. No names, no patches, just the outline of authority and none of the detail. I rolled up slow, window down, offered my logbook, waybill, fuel receipts before they even asked. But they didn't take them, just looked at each other like they were confirming something, then back at me. The taller one said in a voice so flat it barely registered as human, "How long you been on this route, Mr. Melrose?" Not where was I headed, not what was I hauling, just how long. Like the time mattered more than the distance. I told him an hour, maybe an hour 10. Short hop through the corridor. The short one flinched when I said that. Then he nodded, like he was expecting that answer, and asked, "Did you stop before entering the corridor?" Corridor. That word. It crawled up the back of my spine like an insect. Because no DOT officer talks like that. That's not protocol. That's not language we use. I should have left right then, but I didn't. They told me to pull into Bay 2 and shut off the engine. And I did it. Not because I trusted them, but because I was compelled. Like the decision had already been made. I climbed down and followed them inside. Concrete walls painted hospital gray. Lights buzzing overhead like flies in a jar. The place stank of mildew and something. Older, something damp and heavy and wrong. They led me to a back room with an ancient desk and a humming CRT monitor. Not flat screen, not digital, Cathode ray, like something out of a training video from 1991, and the screen was already on. They said, "We're going to show you what your dash cam picked up." My rig's cam is hardwired to a backup drive in my bunk. I check the feed weekly. Never had an issue. But what they played wasn't my route. It was my truck, my Kenworth. Same decals, same timestamp. But the landscape was wrong. Flat fields, dusty 2 lanes, signs and fonts I've never seen. Houses with their windows lit from the inside, even though the outside was pitch dark. Like the light didn't obey the rules. Then it showed me pulling into a gas station I've never seen in my life. Old blue awning, American flag taped in the window, crooked. I watched myself get out, lean against the hood, speak to someone just off camera. Then I handed them something. They zoomed in. A manila envelope. Thick. Sealed. I don't carry envelopes. I don't use paper like that. Then the footage jumped. Cut to me back in the cab. Only now, there was someone else in the passenger seat. Just sitting there. Head down. Hands folded. Like they'd been waiting a long time. I paused the tape. Asked them to rewind. They said, "You're not cleared to view classified retention segments." And that's when the bottom dropped out of me. Because this wasn't just a glitch. It wasn't a mistake. It was like I'd been placed in something. Moved through a process I didn't sign up for. I told them I wanted to leave. One of them said, "You already did." I looked at the wall clock behind them. 4:13 a.m. I'd pulled in at 1:02. My watch still read 1:02. I ran back to the truck. Cab door unlocked. Keys in ignition. But the driver's seat was pushed back farther than I ever set it. CB mic unhooked. And the gas station coffee I'd been sipping was now stone cold. Lit off. Like someone had been drinking it. I didn't think. I just drove. Didn't remember hitting the highway again. Didn't remember merging. But next thing I knew, I was rolling into the Oak Ridge Depot just after sunrise, 2 hours late. Dispatcher didn't say a word. Signed me in. Said my logs looked clean. Except for one thing. GPS had gone dark for 2 hours. Not paused. Not lost. Dead. Like I'd parked. In a town called Fielding Hollow. I've driven this region for 25 years. There is no Fielding Hollow. Doesn't exist on any state map. No postal code. No mile marker. Nothing. I pulled the dash cam files myself that night. All corrupt. Every second. Except one frame. One still image from 2:06 a.m. It shows the passenger seat. Blurry. Out of focus. But there's something hunched in the shadow. Just enough to see a shape. And drawn on the inside of the windshield. Traced in condensation. Like a fingertip dragged across. The fog is my name. Backwards. Iserlum. Kian. I didn't talk about it for a long time. Not to Lou. Not to the old-timers. Not even to myself. Because saying it out loud would mean admitting it happened. And the longer I stayed quiet, the more it stayed close. Like something followed me out of that building and just never let go. Not loud. Not violent. Just present. Like a weight in the corner of the room. Like a thought I didn't think, whispering on the edge of sleep. Some nights I still dream of that flickering bay light, and the hiss of the monitor warming up, of handing over that envelope to someone I've never met, and waking up with coffee cold in my lap and my name. What on the windshield? In a handwriting that isn't mine.